Buhay Kamustika. Welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. I'm going to share some of the lessons I've learned about being with my wife for just short of 6 years now, about how we're getting along better. No matter how long a couple has known each other, living together as husband and wife presents different challenges. Now, critics of my channel assume that it's just a matter of time before things turn ugly and that my wife is only tolerating me, and that's why it seems like they are going well. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can't take anything for granted. You do have to put in the work to get along with her and for her to get along with you, and that teamwork is something I really enjoy in my marriage. Now that we've been married longer, since we got married so fast, I think, both truly feel like we are more teammates now. You will have to deal with tension now and then, of course, especially in the beginning, despite how well you've clicked before living together in marriage. I am not interested in pulling the wool over your eyes. I want you to know how things are. Every time I start a video, I start to cough. Let's see, some coffee helps with that. I think the early years just might be the most challenging. They have been for us, but our relationship is getting better and better. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea for many practical, down-to-earth videos designed to help the man who is serious about finding a wife. Are there many of us left? I sure hope so. There's nothing better than a marriage, and that does not mean it's always a rose garden. You might think that having a large age gap, coming from different cultures, being in an interracial marriage, and not having met in person before we married would be a recipe in relational disaster. Not to mention, we were married in less than 8 weeks from the time I winked at her cute photo on Christian Filipina. I want to say right off the bat that the Holy Spirit is the one who helps us to make the changes we need to make in order to live in harmony. A while back, I was musing on the fact that it seemed like we haven't had an argument in a while, at least some kind of conflict. A little later, my wife mentioned the same thing to me. Then a couple of days after that, we had a spat or something, not really sure what it was about, but I do remember that it didn't last very long. I think we are maturing as a couple, and I want to help subscribers here by explaining how we've been learning to deal with the conflict that is inevitable when a new marital relationship is formed, especially with so many different factors in an international relationship with a Filipina. I hope I can comfort you by telling you it isn't a far greater challenge to get along with a much younger Filipina who you haven't known very long than it is with any other relationship in your country. There is no higher degree of difficulty, I should say. It boils down to the same things. It is resolved or minimized the same ways. You can do it, and I have over 700 videos now, many of them, very down-to-earth, basic things that a person can do, to have a lasting marriage. As I learn, I try to pass that on. Let's start with this. And I have so many things that I can't get it all done in this video. We'll have to take several. First thing I'll mention here, be angry, but sin not. Since my wife and I have only been together here in Nebraska as husband and wife for 4.5 years, maybe longer, after an 8-month visa wait, I can certainly recall times we were upset with each other. Quite a few, in fact. I think our first incident was on our honeymoon, when I was angry with my travel agent over something. Although I was not upset with my wife, I might as well have been, because that's how she reacted. She, like many Filipinas, don't like displays of anger, such as bad language or a raised voice. I hadn't had a relationship in 30 years, so maybe I should have known better, but I was surprised that she was as upset with me as she was. I learned that being demonstrably upset angered her and caused some tension. Multiply that by the times I have lost control, and we have a problem. Lack of closure and lack of timeliness are things that I can allow to upset me greatly, but shouldn't. Your sin weaknesses will come out, but marriage is a great way to learn that you must work on making changes. I don't know that anything prepares you for marriage, but marriage, if you want to become more mature, marriage is a place that will help with that, or else. I have had to realize that I cannot allow some things to tick me off. I have to have some control of my emotions. I can be very intense, but I need to channel that in things other than speaking with my wife. It's hard sometimes. So, be angry, but don't sin. Another thing, be careful about confronting. We Americans must be more confrontational than Filipinos because I sure come off that way to my Filipina. Perhaps this is a blind spot of mine, as it seems natural to me to call something out and want an answer or a reason for something I don't like or understand. A while ago, on a vacation, I was upset because we went through a Disneyland ride that was 3D, except no one told us where to get the 3D glasses, so we missed out on that experience. It was dark. We went in there, kept walking, thought we would find the place where the glasses are. Well, we didn't. Nobody bothered to tell us. To make matters worse, 2 different times at an IMAX theater somewhere else, something went wrong and the movies we saw ended up not able to be seen in 3D. After the Disney experience, I was frustrated that I couldn't give her a 3D experience I thought she would really like, and talked to the guy at the entrance about it. We moved on to something else, but to my delight, she agreed to go back to that ride before it closed and try it again. This time, we found out where the glasses were and enjoyed the experience together. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so emotional, but it irritates me when I think I am wronged. In this case, it was poor communication. Another thing to mention here, I will call this waste not, want not, how we're getting along better. On our honeymoon, during our romantic dinner, there was some confusion as to whether or not I ordered more food, which I didn't think I did, but it wasn't clear. My wife was very upset with me when I said, just take it back to the waiter. This was because wasting food in the Philippines was unthinkable. I think she could have been less intense about it, but she was upset for a couple of days. I've learned that she has a hard time not cleaning off her plate. This is actually a good thing that I appreciate because she has bought many plastic containers of different sizes so we can have as much food saved as possible to eat another time. She also finds resourceful ways to use other items I would have just tossed out. So don't waste food. Think about that. Social media. We need to talk about social media here. A source of conflict early on was her use of social media, which I did expect. I have no problem with her using Facebook, for example, but she, to me, tended to spend a lot of time on it. To her credit, she decided to not use her phone for that. When we used to have break together at work, we would sit together. I like to use YouTube and Google a lot, so I understand that. She can work 12-hour days and spend 3 hours on Facebook while we're in bed. When she arrived in America in January of 16, I remember us falling asleep together. I got used to that because I love it. I look forward to the nights we fall asleep cheek to cheek, holding hands. Over time, she started to look at Facebook when we went to bed, and I kind of felt ignored. If your wife does this, I could see where you might get angry with her. Fortunately, as much as this irritated me, I never got ballistic or anything like that. I gently or more firmly, let her know that I was feeling ignored sometimes, and she apologized, and we were fine. This could have been the source for a big blow up, but it did not happen. Your Filipino wife is going to use social media, whether it be Facebook or who knows, Instagram, Twitter, whatever she's using to keep up with family and friends. And she probably has a lot of them if she's in your country and even if you're both over there. So, that's just something that I think you just have to accept, that you really shouldn't try to change too much. Just make sure that she doesn't get carried away with it. Now, here is how I dealt with this back in those days. I'll mention 6 things here. Don't have to write these down. I understood how much it meant to her to keep up with family and friends. Number 2, I understood how much she enjoyed looking at certain videos. I relish the internet too. 3, she doesn't bother me about my internet use, so I didn't want to bother her. 4, I calmly described to her how I felt, and when I felt ignored, calmly. 5, I started showing an interest in her family when she was on Skype and Facebook with her family, and I've grown to love them more, and now I want to know what's going on in their lives, so I turned that into a positive there. Number 6, I started showing an interest in what she was looking at. Today, we both love talking to her nieces and nephew. My mom loves seeing them too. My wife shows me videos of singers she likes, funny videos we both laugh at. I give her plenty of social media space, and it pays off. Now you've got TikTok in the mix. Behind closed doors, we should talk about this, and I should get rid of some of these aggravating notifications. So behind closed doors, yes, we'll talk about sex a little bit. Sex is obviously important in a marriage, and if it's not obvious to you, then it should be. This kind of intimacy is crucial, in my opinion, for a good marriage. This is such an important area to not struggle with. Interest will be higher and lower for each of you at different times for whatever reasons. You should discuss this during your marriage so both of you know exactly what the other wants. There were people who would tell me when I was single, Bob, sex is just a tiny, small part of being married. Just one part of many. Well, there may be many parts. I think there are fewer as significant as that. So it is important. As with rules, biblical rules for who to marry, who you can marry, the Bible is fairly silent on what to do when it comes to marital intimacy. It comes down to doing what pleases each other, what pleases your spouse, and there are no rules. This time is for the married couple to do whatever they want. In fairness, a younger wife has far more capacity for intimacy than you do, and needs, I suppose, if you have this large age gap. The Bible's command is that sex is for the other person, that we don't have power over our own bodies. Our spouse does. As special as intimacy is in a marriage, it sure can be involved in the most discouragement. Some people laugh at the idea of talking about when to have it, or to agree to have it on certain days, but I think it is absolutely wise to communicate about this in any way you need to. Some days, or sometimes, are just not good times, due to fatigue, being upset, having a bad day at work, just feeling tired. I don't think good sex is just going to happen. I do believe you have to be smart about the communication, timing, frequency. Don't have assumptions. I don't think that takes away from romance or desire. The busier you are, the more you have to plan and communicate. It is not as automatic, I think, as some people seem to think. It has been said that a healthy sexual relationship is the barometer of a healthy marriage. Let me run that past you again. It has been said that a healthy sexual relationship is the barometer of a healthy marriage. That's how important I think it is. I don't intend to dissect every word of that, but I want to say that it should be a goal of each spouse to have a good sexual relationship. It matters. This is where self-control, communication, and unselfishness factor in. You have to avoid conflict there. Like with her Facebook use, I had to learn to come up with some ways, excuse me, to help us in these early days like this. Just some good advice, practical advice. 1, not pressuring her to do it. 2, calmly explaining my need or desire for it, even how often, a week. 3, not expecting or demanding what I wanted. 4, being understanding when she says she's too tired. It goes both ways. 5, always wanting her to be satisfied, even if I'm not. Her needs come first. And really, that goes both ways, too. 6, telling her how much I appreciate her. Now I whisper, thank you, often when we're done, because it is something I appreciate. 7, if she knows that I want to give up my life for her and be good to her, make her dreams come true, help her family, support her, helping her family, compliment her often, sacrifice for her, that helps her to be receptive to me. When we come together, it will be a byproduct of how we treat each other. And this should be a great incentive to not, force her. 8, reminding ourselves that the Bible says our bodies belong to each other. The Bible says the husband has not power over his own body, but the wife. The wife doesn't have power over her own body, but the husband. And render unto each other the due benevolence. This means the debt. That means sexual pleasure. This is not the way the world thinks, and and this is a good thing to know before marrying her. And I think if both people can learn to have an attitude like that and treat each other right, the sexual intimacy will be the least of their concerns in their marriage. Another thing here, before I finish, I will just call this building her nest. Some areas of where we have improved, I think, in our relationship. My wife tends to keep empty boxes of stuff we've purchased, and I would just tend to throw them out. For some reason, she likes to keep them, and sometimes I've asked her to throw things out, like clean our pantry out and stuff, and she has, and sometimes she moves things into the storage room, but everything is nice and neat and organized, and that's something that I do appreciate. So the thing about this is, pick your spots. What you're really going to talk about. Is it just something that really needs to change? Is it just your personal preference? Try to understand why she does what she does, and it might not be so serious next time. Now, I've learned to ask the question: is this going to cause more harm than good if I kind of press the issue and talk to her? She likes to rearrange things here on my computer desk at the studios of Love Beyond the Sea. Sometimes she doesn't tell me, and then there's sometimes I can't find some things. I've learned to politely ask her where something is that I'm looking for, and that I appreciate if she, left things where I could find them. There's no point in avoiding this as long as I'm going to be polite. At the end of the day, if she doesn't change, then I have to accept it. If she just wants to do something a certain way. I can also tell myself this means she feels at home and is continuing to build her nest here by arranging things the way she likes. I decided early on that she could pick the paint for our basement down here, since nobody had been down here before, and pick out our furniture and arrange everything the way she wanted to. I think it's important to let your Filipino wife have control of the way the home is organized. Now, my wife was upstairs a while ago and called me on the phone. She said that the police were at the door and wanted to talk to me. That is her way of saying she wants me to stop what I'm doing and go upstairs and watch TV with her and my mother. We had watched a movie about a man who had 2 wives. She told me that the police said I was going to be arrested for having 5 wives. I told her that she was right, but it's okay because they were all Filipinas. Well, I'll have to continue this another time with essentially part 2 about how we're getting along better here on Love Beyond the Sea.